This message is brought to you by the Capital One Venture X card. Venture X offers the premium benefits you expect, like a $300 annual Capital One travel credit for less than you expect. Elevate your earn with unlimited double miles on every purchase, bringing you one step closer to your next dream destination. Plus, enjoy access to over 1,000 airport lounges worldwide. The Capital One Venture X card. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Lounge access is subject to change. See CapitalOne.com for details.
This is Talkin Rock. Talkin Rock. Your backstage pass to some of your favorite rock artists. Here's your host, Meltdown.
You know, I've never had a chance to talk with Rod Morgenstein before, so it was cool to get a chance to share a few minutes with him. And even though this interview is only about 35 minutes long, I probably could have talked to him for another 2 hours. He's just that kind of guy. He's a people person. He's super personable. He's got some great stories to tell, and he's just a solid drummer. And near the end of the episode, I will replay a little bit of a clip of a song that he told me about where he actually kind of changed the tempo. All right, we'll get to that coming up after the interview. And as the interview goes on, you'll hear him talk about that. But we talk about his wing thing, his drumming tool, which is pretty cool. The whole interview was supposed to be around Voices of Extreme. That's his new project he's in. But Rod likes to talk about past tours, likes to talk about Winger. It's like I could have just brought any subject to him, and he was all about it. So really cool. You can watch this on YouTube and at WRAF.com as well. Really cool to talk with Rod Morgenstein this week on Talkin Rock. Rod, good to see you. You know, I've been in this business 36 years. I think this is the first time I've had a chance to talk to you. I think I might have met you once decades ago, but I don't even remember, and I'm sure you don't either. So good to see you.
Great to be here.
You know, I grew up in Buffalo, and it's kind of funny because I've been in Detroit now for the past 30 years, but you have this tool called the wing thing, and where I come from, it's a little bit different than than a tool for drummers, I suppose, but that seems to be everywhere, man. That's taken off for you, eh?
It's very exciting. You know, God, I'm probably going back 40, 50 years where I had my first idea for a product, and then it never came to pass. But then when my ears started ringing full time after is almost near the 100th concert of Winger on tour with Cinderella and the Bullet Boys back in 1989, I came off stage. My ears were ringing like they always ring. And I woke up the next morning and the ring was still there. So this is 1989. The ring never went away. And so one thing led to another, and I started using shooting range headphones. And then I discovered that the sound was so good having like a 24 decibel drop. And then when I had to learn some new music for the next Winger record, I was using a Walkman, if people remember that. And I put the speakers upside down on me and with the isolation phones. And then I was able to listen to the music super quietly instead of blasting how it always had been, you know, in a recording studio with a traditional headset. And one thing led to another. And I brought the idea of isolation headphones to, oh my God, like, I can't remember how many companies, everybody said, Rod, there's no need for an isolation headphone. And ultimately, I sat down with Vic Firth, the owner of Vic Firth Drumsticks, and sold him on the idea. And they've become, you know, this ridiculously popular item. And so I realized, hey, you know what? Maybe you have a knack for products. So I'd say about 30 or 40 years ago, I had the idea to come up with like a drummer's survival toolkit. And then as the years passed, I finally found someone to partner up with and sold him on the idea of having like specialty tools for drummers. And so here we have, you know,
there it is.
The wing thing. I mean, it's unbelievable how much time and effort, blood, sweat, and tears it takes, you know, just to get a product like that, one, conceived and manufactured. And then, you know, when you're just two people trying to take care of every aspect of running a business, it's insane. But at this point, you know, a couple years in, we have so many drummers using it and praising it. It's very flattering. Recently, we received a photograph of Rush's new drummer, Annika Niles. smiling for the camera and holding the tool. Well, how did that happen? Well, Neil Peart's drum tech, Lorne Wheaton, somehow he came across the tool, loves it, and now he's working with Annika for the upcoming Rush tour, and sent me and my partner a photo of her holding it, and he said, "Use it as you wish." We're fans of the tool, and so little by little, getting other people using it. Jimmy Clark, Lars Ulrich's drum tech.
Oh, they.
He's got a dozen of them because on the on the Metallica tour, there's like 4 drum sets or something. Right. So he has one parked by each drum set, and then he wanted 12 of them. And Mike Portnoy's drum tech, Jose Baracchio, and on and on and on. Mike Mangini, Ray Loser. It's great. It's great. So we're doing everything we can to just get the word out there, and it's very exciting. It really saves your hands and your fingers. I don't know if you've ever played drums, but as a drummer, if a long time passes before you loosen a wing nut, you can't. And so usually drummers clumsily take their 2 sticks, they put it over the wing nut and, crank it to loosen it. And then when you're setting up a cymbal stand or any kind of stand, if you don't crank it hard enough, I still had this happen, not cranking things down enough. You slam a cymbal and then either it starts spinning if it's on a cymbal stand that has the what am I? A cymbal stand, not a boom stand. Thank you. So instead of like clumsily using drumsticks or really hurting your hands, you just put this beautiful tool over the wing nut and gently crank to tighten or left to loosen.
Right. No, it looks great. I mean, I am not a drummer, by the way, but man, that's a lot to unpack right there. You just brought up a lot of things. But Annika Niles, I mean, do you know anything about her? Are you going to go see these Rush shows with her?
Yeah, I'm going to make every effort to go to at least one of the shows. They're doing 4 in New York City, so I might go to that. I'm not sure if they have a Long Island show planned. I've never met her or seen her play live, but I've seen a lot of video clips, and she's amazing. She's like a fantastic fusion drummer.
Okay.
So many chops and very well versed in polyrhythms and odd time and playing over the bar line. Amazing.
Yeah, and it's like the way I've been talking about it on the radio too. It's like if Alex and Getty give her the seal of approval, I suppose that's good enough for me.
Yeah, and in fact, it's so funny talking about Rush. Back in, I think it was November, December of 1985 and January of 86, the Dixie Dregs had disbanded until further notice, but Steve Morse, our guitarist, asked me if I'd like to continue playing with him. He wants to start a trio called the Steve Morse Band. So I started playing with Steve. We did 2 records. The second album was called Stand Up, and it had a couple of vocals on it. We had Alex Lidgertwood, who was the singer with Santana at the time, and Albert Lee, the great guitarist. And we got 3 legs of the Power Windows Rush tour. And we wanted to do the vocals, so we brought a local singer guitarist on tour with us and did like 45 shows with Rush. So we all got to know those 3 guys extremely well. And in fact, the first time I ever traveled on a tour bus, this is before I was in Winger, right? Winger happened in 1988. So I'd never been on a tour bus. And when we got to know Neil, Alex, and Getty fairly well, one day they just put out the offer. They said, hey, if one night as we travel to the next city, any of you guys want to come on the bus with us, you're more than welcome. So I traveled, on their tour bus, which was just the 3 of them and their tour manager. And got that whole experience for the first time in my life. They're 3 of the nicest gentlemen, forget the musicianship, or in addition to just being the musicians that they are, they went out of their way to make us as their support band feel special. And And I just like 2 days ago finished reading Geddy Lee's My Effin' Life
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
autobiography, and knowing him, or having gotten to know him like I did on tour, I can feel every word that's coming off the pages. I feel his personality and I hear him speaking the words. He is such a lovely human being.
Yeah, I would chance to interview. Obviously, I've interviewed Getty and I've interviewed Alex. I've never met Neil. Of course, Neil was always kind of an enigma, but wrapped in a mystery. But I did get to read his book, Ghost Rider. Did you read that one?
Yeah, I sure did. I was somehow I got on a mailing list of getting a lot of his things or Rush's recordings and Neil's books. The side projects that they would do. Yeah. So oh my God, I have so many Neil Peart stories because, I got to spend a fair amount of time with him too. He shunned being in the spotlight. I don't want to say he was a shy human being. He just didn't want to have to just sort of talk gibberish or things of non-importance to him.
Well, he seemed like the kind of person, having never met him, that didn't enjoy the adulation.
No, he was not in it for that reason at all. It was just to push himself. But since we're talking about him, I just have to tell you like a quick story. So a typical day on the road with Rush back then, again, I'm telling you, it's 40 years ago. Neil, in later years, he got into the motorcycle, but when I met him, he was riding his bicycle. He was a serious cyclist. And if the next show was within 150 miles, he would not go on the tour bus after the show to the next city. He would sleep in the town that we played and get up at the crack of dawn to get on his bicycle and pedal upwards of 8 hours to the next city. So I would typically be in the arena throwing a baseball with Geddy Lee because, Geddy is a insanely, insane fan of baseball. And you would see this figure come riding into the arena, and then the bike would be put down, and then it was time for their sound check. So they would do their sound check, and then immediately following the sound check, a local French tutor, a French teacher, was waiting for Neil to give him a 1-hour lesson in conversational French, because sadly he lost both his wife and daughter within the same year, or within a year's time, back in 97 and 98, I think. But his daughter was a young girl then, and they lived in Toronto, and his daughter learned to speak French as well as English. So Neil wanted to be able to converse in his daughter in both languages. So he would do that. Then they would do their 2+ hour show. And then after the show, he'd hang out for a little bit, and then he'd excuse himself to the bus because he was in the midst of writing his first literary work. So that was a typical day in the life of Neil Peart.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah.
Yeah, the other guys were into partying a little bit more.
Yeah. Did you ever sign a baseball for Geddy?
No.
You never did. Okay.
But this is packed up. A lot of celebrities would come out to the Rush shows.
Right.
And one of their fans, his name was Warren Cromartie. So he was a professional baseball player. He played on the Montreal Expos. And then he was a troublemaker, and he ended up being sent to Japan, and he became a baseball star there. But on the last night that he was coming out to hang with the band and watch them play, he gave me his baseball glove. It might have been his all-star glove, and he signed it with a pen, and that has since kind of disappeared. It's faded away. But I have that baseball glove. Those 3 legs that we did with them were life-changing for all of us in the Steve Morse Band. But for me, it put me on the map as a drummer, because if you think about it, what other environment will there be thousands of drummers in the same place? So at any Rush show with say 12,000 people, you're going to have 2,000 drummers, if not 4,000 drummers, and they're all air drumming every note of every song of Rush's. But I won Best New Talent that year, and it was because tens of thousands of drummers got to see me play. I mean, that's what I attribute it to.
Did the movie I Love You Man, Rush was in that movie? Do you know what I'm talking about? It came out in like 2009.
I know I saw it, and I need to watch it again because he talks about it in the book.
Yeah, because what happened was I went to New York City and I interviewed Paul Rudd and Jason Segel, who were in the movie, and they told me this really funny story about where they were watching the band, and they were explaining this to the guys from the band. They're like, we're going to be watching you guys, but we're kind of mad at each other, and so we're going to be standing there with our arms folded watching you guys, but we love the band, but we're mad at each other. And I think it was Getty or someone said, oh, so it's going to be like every Rush concert ever. I thought that was the funniest line. But so was that one of the best tours that you ever been on in your life, do you think?
Oh, hands down.
Yeah.
Of course. Well, certainly, first off, meeting people of that stature. And, I've always been or fashioned myself, a serious musician. And I went to college and I have a music degree. And so to be touring with a band of real musicians, and I mean serious musicians that took their art, to another level. And I had so much respect for them because they didn't play by the rules. Radio didn't accept them for years, and they never did what the label was trying to get them to do, which is write 3-minute songs. It was like, no, this is what we do. And in the book, he's talking about it too. It wasn't just the record label, it was their own management that just kept trying to pressure them to do things. You got to play the game. You got to play the game. No, we're not going to play the game. We're going to do it our way, and we're going to succeed or not.
Yeah, Getty told me that, they really broke through with 2112, and that was hardly an album with 3-minute songs on it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I'm just reacquainting myself with a lot of their music. So I've probably listened to about 50 songs so far. So when I do my 30-minute power walk, I go to YouTube and I bring up one of their albums.
You say serious musicians, but, Winger, they were serious musicians. I mean, Reb and Kip and stuff like that. And do you think that sometimes maybe the seriousness of the musicianship was maybe lost in the world that was the 80s back then?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Kip Winger is a bona fide classical composer now. I sat in the San Francisco Opera House and watched the San Francisco Ballet dance to his first classical piece called Ghosts. It was choreographed by a world famous dance choreographer, Christopher Wheeldon, from the New York City Ballet. And then 6 months ago or 9 months ago, I sat in Symphony Hall in Nashville and listened to Kip Winger's first violin concerto. And they had a world famous concertmaster violinist perform the piece. I'm not sure if he's from the Chicago Symphony. And 2 or 3 years ago, Kip was invited to Berlin, where it was the 100-year anniversary of The Rite of Spring by, who's the composer? The Rite of Spring.
I couldn't tell you, but I know what you're saying.
I see his face too. And the conductor said, Kip, we know you've written a piece called Conversations with Nijinsky being the dance choreographer for The Rite of Spring. We're playing your piece before The Rite of Spring, and we'd love to have you fly over to Berlin to be the guest of honor. So this is Kip Winger, the guy that when I think back to like Beavis and Butthead making fun, Kip was chosen as the poster child of all things to make fun of with the hairband, so-called hairband movement. And, he was so unfairly treated as like a talentless hack, but he's having the last laugh because he's probably the rock musician who has taken the jump into the classical world further than anybody.
Yeah.
Now, there are bands or artists that, have an orchestra, perform some of their music. So you have Deep Purple playing Smoke on the Water and then a 100-piece orchestra going da 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 da. But this is a whole different thing. Kip has been up for Grammy Awards for Best Classical Album, it's a whole different kind of music. This is not winger with strings. It is modern classical music.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm so proud of him. And so we're still a band. We played what might have been our last show in LA at the Rainbow,
right?
Ron Brill, the infamous birthplace of heavy metal in the United States. And they've started putting on 1 or 2 concerts a year where they build a stage in the parking lot and let a bunch of people in. So we did that August 31st. We thought, what a fitting way to maybe play our last show. But instead of saying this is our last show, we said never say never. So in April, we're playing is it called the Bangers something festival in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Oh. And in October, I wrote it down. What's it called? Where did I write it? I can't even remember.
So
Rockween in Cancun, the Rockween Rock Festival. And then we have a couple of shows in the United States. And so we're doing occasional shows, but we've been a band for 37 years. We're in our 38th year. We're starting to wind things down.
Brought to you by the Capital One Savor Card. With Savor, you earn unlimited 3% cash back on dining, entertainment, and at grocery stores. That's unlimited cash back on ordering takeout from home, or unlimited cash back on tickets to concerts and games. So grab a bite, grab a seat, and earn unlimited 3% cash back with the Savor Card. Capital One. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com for details.
Yeah, and you're 72, and now you got this other project you're working with as well. Tell me about Voices of Extreme, because that band has been around for a while. But did you just join the band?
Yeah. So Don Chafin is the vocalist and the guitarist. And several years ago, I was contacted by a guitarist whose name is Joe Cangemi. He's from my area, Long Island, and tragically, he and his wife lost their 4-year-old son. This is going back it's probably 6 or 8 years now. He was playing on their front lawn, and someone who was texting on their phone and driving their car went right up the curb, ran him over, killed him instantly. That didn't even know it. So Joe, I hadn't met these guys until I got together for this project where Joe found like a year later that writing music was his escape from the horrible, dark thoughts he was having. So he contacted me and Billy Sheehan.
Oh, yeah, I know Billy, yeah.
To perform a bunch of music that he had written. And Don Chafin was the singer on it, and everything was recorded at Don's recording studio. And that's how I met Don. And so that was several years ago. We ended up playing one concert as a band, which was great. And then about a year and a half ago, Don contacted me to see if I'd like to work on some Voices of Extreme music with him and his partner, Paul Ranieri. Paul's an amazing fretless bass player, like a la Jaco Pastorius.
Jaco, yeah.
But in a rock context. And so I've recorded a bunch of music with them. There's one video online right now called Stoned Babies. Yep. And we're getting ready to shoot a second video called Pain and Love and record maybe 3 more songs to have an album's worth of material. And that record will come out on Brave Words Records sometime later this year.
All right. I was going to ask you about a date, but I guess the record's called Faith in Action.
Yes. Yes.
And so sometime this year, Voices of Extreme. Like I said, did you join in with this band because you could see that Winger was going to start to wind down, or you're just looking for something to do? Is it just another project? Tell me what your thoughts are about joining another project in your 70s.
Yeah. No, it had nothing to do with Winger winding down. It's just, throughout the years, you get called by people you may never have met to see if they could hire you to do something. But now with Winger winding down, I'm kind of going through a whole soul searching period myself. Being at the age that I'm at and trying to decide, do I still want to tour?
Mhm.
Playing is still fine. I'm in good physical shape, knock wood. And I love music. I love to play drums, and I'm still playing at a pretty good level. But I hit my 50 year as a pro
Mm.
back in September,
Mm.
and so I've put in a lot of time. I'm not sure that I want to throw in the towel yet. And music's not like a regular job, It's like, and also I kept hearing Getty in his book, kind of making remarks like, when I grow up, well, there's that joke where the father says to his kid, because the kid says, Dad, when I grew up, I want to be a musician. And then the dad says, son, you can't be both. And Getty kept alluding to that in the book, like there's always a child inside you, or that young kid with that burning desire to play a musical instrument and have a band and make it somehow, or at least to make a living. And so that's how I've never had a regular job. I've been a musician my entire life. The closest I've come to having a regular job is when I was a professor of music at Berkeley College of Music. Well, I mean, I worked my way over the 20 years that I taught there in person in Boston, commuting from Long Island. It was like a 535-mile trip, 30 weeks a year for 20 years, and sometimes having to fly from Boston to do Winger gigs or Dixie Dregs gigs, and then fly back to Boston to teach the next week, and then come home for a couple of days. It's a crazy life, but if you're able to have some success at it, it's a very fun, enjoyable existence.
Yeah, you talk about never growing up. It's like I said at the start, I've been in this business for 36 years. There are things I do in my life, in my daily life, that in the world of rock and whatnot, that my father would never do at my age. Wouldn't even do 25 years ago, just because I think it keeps you young. I just saw Avatar. I don't know if you know who they are. They're a Swedish metal band, and I'm
Right.
like, I couldn't get enough of it. you know, that kind of
I
thing.
mean, yeah, I mean, some people rock till they drop.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, we're losing so many, big name musicians. I remember in May, we played some shows, and then we were not going to play another show from the beginning of May until the end of August, doing two shows, the last one being in LA, right, at the Rainbow. But in the middle of May, we were called by the biggest sausage festival in the United States, like in Wisconsin. Ace Frehley just canceled. He fell, or he has a cold, or so. We didn't know anything about how bad his situation was, So we filled in. We kind of did that show, and then in August, I forget. I think maybe Warrant canceled a show opening for Joan Jett in Pittsburgh, which is Reb Beach's hometown. And so, of course, we had to do that show, especially for Reb. And my sister is like best friends with Joan Jett's wife, and really good friends with her the husband, who is the manager.
Okay.
I didn't mean Joan Jett's wife. So the manager and his wife of Joan Jett. My sister is like best friends with them. She's like, you got to do it, because I've never been in a band that played with Joan Jett. I've met Joan at my sister's house. But that was really good, because the tour manager, someone in the road crew, has been a fan of mine for years, and so it was really nice to meet him and chat with him.
Well,
But I just have to tell you, the way it came about was my sister was at the manager's house, is Kenny Laguna and his wife Meryl, and she was just talking about her brother Rod, and something about drums, and then this tech or road manager, he said, Rod as in Morgenstein? And she said, yeah, because her name at the moment is Harris, her last name. And he had no idea for all the years that he knew my sister that I was her brother. So she said it was just a hilarious moment at Kenny Laguna and Merrill's home.
It's a small world thing, of course, in this rock and roll world. That's why I said when we first started, I can't believe I'd never interviewed you before or talked to you before. But last thing here for you, Rod, and we'll cut you loose because I could talk about stuff and for hours with you. But it's real fast. Voices of Extreme, really want to get a plug in for that. That's coming up. Stone Babies, we'll put that in the story and whatnot. It's spurred by memory. I saw a video of Kip opening up a Winger box set, and to me, one of my favorite records from Winger was Pull, a record that I think came out at the exactly wrong time.
Oh my God, this is heartbreaking. And I have to say, every show that Winger does, somewhere in the show, Kip comes over to the drummerizer and we have eye contact, and the melancholy that we feel about If Only. So Winger came out, you don't know about history until it happens, and then you look back with 2020, right? So Winger's album came out in the latter part of 1988, and yep. Nirvana came out a couple of years ago, and it was over. Yeah. And so Pull kind of came out when the whole hair metal thing was, on the downward slide. And we feel in our hearts, if we had come out maybe one or two albums earlier, more in the mid 80s than the late 80s, we would have been a huge force to reckon with. Mm-hmm. Like some of the bands that are still around. And like a song like Spell I'm Under, the ballad, it's like, it would like equals any Def Leppard song to me. I mean, I think Def Leppard's an amazing band, but I'm also so proud of Winger. And the Pull album, which was the third Winger album, was so mature and kind of different than the first two, yep. Where, in order to get a record deal, we're talking about, Rush going, we don't care what you're telling us. We're not doing it. So in the case of Winger, it was kind of like, okay, Kip and Reb wrote demos for years and kept getting rejected and rejected and rejected from every record label in New York, right? Mm-hmm. And so then Kip was just studying the charts and saying, okay, so like who's in the top 20? Let me listen to their music. What is it that are some of the elements that just have to be there to maybe even be lucky enough to get a record deal? But in addition to that, he always wanted there to be elements in the band that sets it apart from all the other bands of like Cinderella, Def Leppard, Bon Jovi, Kiss, Poison, blah, 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 blah. And that's how I got in the band. He had a list of 20 or 30 of the rock drummers in New York. And when we had this inadvertent meeting in an office, it was a Japanese management company that was trying to help Kip and Reb. And I was up there to meet about maybe doing a Kitaro tour. He was a new age artist. Mm. And when we were introduced, just by chance, Kip didn't know who I was, but Reb was freaking out because the Dixie Dregs were like one of his favorite bands. And Steve Morse was, him and George Lynch were his two favorite guitarists at the time. He was going, Kip, you don't know who this guy, And so we ended up and jammed like the next week. And I was so concerned about, turning him off by playing in my fusion style. So I intentionally just hit the drums hard. I didn't do any drum fills. I just played, those couple of basic rock beats because he walked over to me and started pumping on his bass. Dun, 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 dun. And after about 10 seconds, he stopped and he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "What do you mean? I'm doing what what I think is appropriate. He said, great. I see you hit the drums hard and play simple, but Reb said you could lose me, you know? I said, I'm intentionally not doing that. He goes, well, I'm looking for ways that when we get a record deal and make a record, we could be a little bit different than everybody else. And one way is to maybe have a drummer who comes from a different background and can do things that you don't necessarily hear on rock records. And so case in point, when we cut the song 17, when we cut the drums for it, after the guitar solo where the that riff's happening, I cut the track, and then they said, hey, Rod, can you do something that you'd never hear on a rock record in those 2 measures? So I went, all right, you're probably going to hate it. And so I turned the beat around. You know, it's a fusion concept. So I delayed pa pa by an 8th note. I went 1, 2, 3, 4 pa 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 pa. 2 measures. And when I looked through the double panes of glass into the studio, where the, you know, all the recording gear was, like, Kip and the producer, Bo Hill, they disappeared. They fell off their chairs and they were laughing and they loved it. And that's what's on the record. And hundreds of musicians have asked me, what's going on there? What time signature is that? Why did the bottom drop out? And I try to explain. And back in the day, I would rattle off a lot of my peers from the fusion world. So I would say, you know, Dave Weckl, Vinnie Colaiuta, Steve Smith, Simon Phillips, they'd go, who? The only jazz drummer they knew was Neil Peart, you know, or some of them maybe knew Mike Portnoy because Dream Theater had their Images and Words album out.
Right, yeah. And it always goes back to Neil Peart. Well, I'll tell you what, Rod, I got to cut you loose because this thing is gonna end on me. But really great talking to you. Awesome stories. I wish you nothing but the best in Voices of Extreme. And maybe next time you're in Detroit, you come by and say hello.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you, Meltdown. Pleasure.
All right. In the interview, Rod mentioned the outro of the guitar solo in 17, where he kind of changes up the beat a little bit. Let's give it a listen here. I isolated it. Have it. A little bit of an offbeat right there. Rod Morgenstein on Talkin Rock with Meltdown. Really a pleasure to talk with Rod. And yes, he's a schooled musician, super good guy. And it was really fun to finally talk to him after all these years. Voices of Extreme, that's his new band. And after I posted this, I did see that the guys from Extreme did line up another date sometime in midsummer. If you want to go check them out, I'm not exactly sure where. I think maybe in California or something. But anyway, it's kind of cool to check in with Rod. Hey, I've got some hooks in the water for next week. I know I mention this every single time, but I've got some cool artists, 2 guitar players lined up so far. One is a legendary guitar player, and that's all I'm going to say about that. And by the way, that one is only on the phone, so there won't be any video of this interview for whatever reason, even though I've interviewed him on video in the past, and he's a super good guy. So anyways, that comes up next week.
Thank you for listening to Talkin Rock with Meltdown. You can help this podcast grow by giving it a 5-star rating and writing a review on Apple and iTunes. Plus, feel free to subscribe and share it with your friends. Until next time, thanks for listening to Talkin Rock.